looking at you up here.
G'day guys, take 2 of Members Spotlight for July, and okay, we're up and running this time, I reckon, so it all seems to be working pretty well. Now today's guest is someone that's just completed the Protege program. I thought it was fitting that we had someone on today who's got some experience in one of the programs from the Speakers Institute, which is really the crux of what we teach is in regards to the curriculum, and we're going to get a really, really good perspective as well. So it's all fresh. Helen Glanville, welcome to Members Spotlight.
Thank you so much. It's very fresh. I only got back from Sydney yesterday, 3 intensive days. It was wonderful.
Yeah. So just tell us a bit about yourself. Obviously, we've seen you around. I've known you for some time through the tribe itself. So how did you get involved in tribe? And
well, it was highly recommended by Speakers Institute. So I went to Sydney firstly in March 2020, and we were there at the Rocks just when the Princess Ruby was there, and all these internationals were floating around, and we just missed that bullet and came back and stayed in contact with the whole program. But I refused to go online. I'm one of these people that I want to learn when I'm in the flesh. So what was supposed to be 18 months took 28 months, but I'm so glad it did. I'm so glad that every intensive, every boot camp was in the flesh. So yes, I've done 3 intensive boot camps, and yeah, I got a certificate to say I'm now a graduate.
Well done. Congratulations. I went through it some years ago now, and I know it's changed a lot since I did it. It's more of a hybrid program these days. So there's a massive online, obviously, presence due to COVID, but
yeah,
obviously, yeah, I'm much like you. I'd rather be there in the flesh as well. So
yeah,
it's fantastic that you were able to do that, which is good.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about like your background. You know, I know that I've heard you speak about overcoming loss before as well. And I know you've had a loss recently. Do you just want to touch on that to our members?
I've had several losses, but I've got 10 years experience as a registered nurse in New South Wales. So I'm a Sydney girl. I came to South Australia kicking and screaming because I didn't think there was any life form outside of Sydney. Then we landed and bumped into 25 beautiful acres. And I worked for 10 years, 3 years in local government, then 7 years in defence. Gave birth to 2 beautiful sons who were South Australians, and built up our forever home in the middle of 25 acres. We designed that home. It was very much a heritage home with the turned posts and the lovely lace work and the coins, and just beautiful brickwork. And then in December 2019, along came the Cuddly Creek fires, which completely wiped us out. And that was quite a shock. I was shell-shocked for quite some time. And I can tell you that that's when you know who your friends and who your family are, and you know how you can anchor down your faith to hold on, because so much was just disappeared. Little things, you know, I'll just get that tape measure. Oops, haven't got a tape measure. So I'll just get the hammer. No, haven't got a hammer.
You lost everything, did you? You lost the whole house.
Totally, except, get a load of this. You're going to love this. The only thing that was rescued was this Pandora bracelet.
Yeah.
And we didn't find it. Like, everything was reduced to rubble completely. Rubble and ash. We were made homeless overnight. But this little baby, which still got all the black, you know, it's been cleaned, would you believe? That's still black. And all that's left of a gift that my eldest son gave me is found in this Pandora's bracelet. And that's it.
It's pretty.
And I'm so glad that I found something that had sentiment from my son.
I mean, it's pretty significant. And for those of you interstate that don't know about the fires here, they just ravaged through some areas in the Adelaide Hills, and it was devastating. You know, people lost homes, pets. I'm not sure, Helen, did anyone actually die in the fires? Was there anyone that passed away? I don't recall.
Yeah, I think there was one gentleman over in Charleston who died.
Okay.
But in South Australia, in the hills and Kangaroo Island, there were a total of 89 homes that were destroyed. And that's significant. It's quite significant. But across Australia, those same fires, 2,500 homes were destroyed. 30 people lost their lives nationwide.
Yeah.
And the amount of devastation was 27 million acres of Australia totally destroyed. So when we got to our property, when the police allowed us to get to our property a couple of days after, it just looked like the apocalypse. When I show photos, they say, oh, these are black and white photos. No, 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 no. These are color photos, but everything's black. So we were, as I said, shell-shocked, and something that I wouldn't wish on anyone, because everything we'd worked hard for was locked away, and in the 3 decades, it was all wrapped up in our forever home, which we had designed.
And I remember having a conversation with you at the last gathering, and you said to me, look, everyone overcomes loss or has to face loss at some point in their lives.
Yes.
So now, I mean, something like that's pretty severe. Now, obviously, we lose loved ones and things like that, but I mean, to lose a home like that, and what advice, I suppose, could you give to people, in such a devastating scenario as such, where you've just lost everything as far as material items go?
Well, let's just backtrack and realize there are 3 types of loss. You have material loss, which was our experience. You have physical loss. You can lose a limb. That's pretty devastating. Then you can, of course, have an emotional loss. So you can lose a partner, maybe be separated, or perhaps be made redundant. They're pretty significant losses. But when it comes to material loss, you either have to say, do I put my faith in things? Because as I was walking up we had a 200-meter driveway, and as I was walking up, my son was in India, my baby, and he said, Mum, you're not going to really understand this, but I have a good feeling about this fire. This is before I even walked into the house to see the devastation. He said, I've got this feeling that this is going to be a redirection for good. And of course, at the time, that wasn't very comforting. But then he said, and Mum, you can't take anything with you. So I think that it's a big lesson in where do we put our hope? Where do we put our energy? Where do we put our values? And materialism is something that doesn't last. Later in life, we all have to downsize. And so the kids get the family heirlooms anyway. So unfortunately, my husband lost some antique French clocks. I lost my corporate wardrobe. I thought that was quite devastating, but it's, fashion changes, so you get different clothes. But all the trinkets that we'd gathered from all our international travels, all the memories, we went to New Zealand for our 30th wedding anniversary and brought back some beautiful gemstones. And you just have those memories wrapped around things. But at the end of the day, they're things. And the saddest part for us was really the photographs. We had a lot of historic photographs that were not on Facebook, that hadn't been stored digitally.
Yeah.
So when I was a little girl, all the photographs were black and white.
Yeah.
Sorry?
These days we've got clouds and all that, but obviously you haven't got them in the clouds and things like that. Yeah,
that's right.
So, yep. And Helen, I know you also recently lost your husband as well.
Yes. Yes.
And that's pretty recent. So, I mean, in regards to, that's 2 devastating losses. Can you just explain, I guess, what's the big difference between, the material loss, and then obviously, someone so close, someone that you've grown with over the last,
Well, we're talking about 42 years of marriage. And we're talking also about a marriage where there was a 20-year age gap. So in some ways, I have been trying to galvanize myself for this moment, because, unless I got sick, it was inevitable that my husband probably would pass before myself. The last 2 years of his life, he needed all the help he could get, which obviously I gave him, and he was dependent on me. So my role really changed from being a wife to being a caregiver, and my nursing skills did come into play. But the most important thing for me was to make sure he had a death that was peaceful. And he wanted to die on our houseboat. So the oncologist said last October to Geoff, and I was there, look, you'll make it for Christmas, but you probably won't make it for Easter. Well, of course, I took him on. I said, oh, come on, mate, you were wrong last time. He gave us 16 months and we went on for about 36 months. So he was right. And the name of our houseboat is Eternity. And so at his celebration of life, we said, well, Geoff died on eternity to go to eternity. And that's exactly where he wanted to die. And not many people get to choose. You know, we don't talk much about death and dying and how we want to pass. And the palliative care nurse came in the next day and she said, look at his face. He's just so peaceful. So we are Christians. And so we had a knowing that he would just go home to Father in heaven. And that's how we felt. My two sons, we were all holding hands around him and we let him go. And he went peacefully. And I'm just so glad he didn't die in hospital, because he asked me, he said, please promise me I won't go to hospital, because that can be really sad.
Yeah.
Disturb sleep and all that jazz. So he died the way he wanted to die. And I don't think I know of many people who get that choice.
Now, that's awesome to hear that. And, you know, a good perspective as well, because you're right, obviously, a material loss versus, you know, you're losing a loved one are two different things, both significant in different ways, but obviously very, very, very different in how they show up and I guess how you deal with it. So I want to finish with the program itself, the Protege, and you obviously stepped up to do that. And some time ago, you made that decision.
Yes.
What did you get out of it? What's the big takeaway? If someone's sort of sitting on the fence and they're considering doing the boot camp or doing the actual Protege itself, what would you say you got the most out of?
It's the package.
Yeah.
So we learn best by applying what we learn. And you have to do a certain number of intensives, and they cover a range of subjects like storytelling versus story showing, confidence and certainty, and all these things marry and come onto the stage. And there isn't anything I wouldn't want to do again, because even though there was a gap in the learning, little bits of it, little modules, they all link together. And you just pull them in together and apply them to your own personality, to your own story and message. I'm sure there's still room for improvement for me, but the keys are there and I understand the principles. And I'm very grateful for the tuition, because when you're on boot camp, it's so intensive. You feel like you're the only person, and you've got the feedback, you've got the professionals, and you can hone your craft and command attention and make a difference, get your message out there, but also in a way that's inspirational. So I get bored very easily when I'm listening to people. And I've listened to a lot of people over the years, and I think, oh, help me. You should have put a lot more effort into that, because you've just bored me. You could have said that in 2 sentences instead of 2 paragraphs. So I'm very hard on my own self, because I want to deliver a message that really hits the spot, both in content, but also entertaining, and encourage people to rethink their attitudes and their beliefs to the message. So yes, I'm a great believer in overcoming. I think nobody teaches us how to overcome a tragedy. I never got taught, how do you get through that? And then you look at the people in northern New South Wales who are suffering not just one flood, they're suffering several floods. How do they have an overcoming mindset? And that overcoming mindset and the way we navigate through tragedy really should be taught to every Australian. Because there's going to be more fires, and there's going to be more floods, there's going to be an earthquake, there's going to be a cyclone, there's going to be a tsunami, there's going to be something, an avalanche of snow to bury people. Yep. We live in a country that's what do you call it? I love her floodlit plains or something. I've forgotten the the poem, but it is a dry and hard land.
Yeah.
And I never thought it would happen to us. Our house was safe all day until 7 o'clock at night when the winds changed and the southerlies came up. We were wiped. 500 bales of hay wiped. All the fencing. 7 cattle escaped. Fortunately, they were found and they were unharmed.
Yeah.
But devastation happens, like so suddenly. And it could be a car accident. It could be a train disaster. But, who teaches us where to drill down, how to drill down, and how to stabilize and galvanize ourselves to ride the storm? Because it is an emotional storm. It's huge.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's no certainties in life. Life is unpredictable. So, and bad things are going to happen, unfortunately, that are out of our control. So it's how we respond and how we deal with that. And
yeah,
I just thank you so much, for coming on and sharing that story, especially, under the circumstances too. I know it's pretty fresh still over the last few months. So if someone wants to actually reach out to you, Helen, they might be going through some loss themselves. I know this is what you do. You specialize in this.
Yeah.
What's the best way they can actually reach out to you?
Well, right now, the recording's going out to members of our tribe.
Going out to our community. That's correct. Yeah, it's going to go out to our tribe.
So I am contactable in that sense, and that's through Facebook, or they could befriend me or send me a private message. But we also belong to a global community, and also tribes are in every state of our nation. So if there's people suffering in particular in northern New South Wales, I'd be very happy to chat with them. Because unfortunately, some people do stay in the place of loss, and they stay in the place of mourning, and they can't imagine a fresh future. Whereas the whole principle of backburning is then you get new green growth. It's a principle. You backburn, the custodians of our land know all about backburning, and within 6 weeks, you get this beautiful fresh growth. And we need to look forward to that. We need to understand that the green, fresh growth for our lives is going to come. But there's some principles we can apply to ensure that happens. So yes, anyone through Speakers Institute, tribes, global, across the state, I am not hard to find. I've got a bit of a digital footprint, so find me.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Helen. It's been great to have you on, and looking forward to catching up with you going tomorrow night to the.
Absolutely, I'm in.
I'll see you tomorrow night then, and everyone else, looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah,
you can all make it. The more, the better.
That's right. We'll have a drink.
Good on you. Thank you, guys. Enjoy.
Yeah, you too. Bye.